very interesting chapter, Isaiah 57. Look at verse number 1. It says, "The righteous perisheth, and no man layeth it to heart. And merciful men are taken away, none considering that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. He shall enter into peace. They shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his uprightness." Now don't read over these first two verses, because the first many times I read this, I didn't really grasp the meaning until I kept reading it over, and it came out what he's saying. And some of Isaiah is like this, and so it really has to be carefully read here. He's saying the righteous perisheth, and no man layeth it to heart. He's saying nobody cares, right? The righteous perisheth, he dies, and nobody cares. But look at the next phrase. "And merciful men are taken away, none considering." He's saying, but nobody seems to realize, nobody seems to think about the fact that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. "He shall enter into peace. They shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his uprightness." What is he saying here? Basically, at this time, the nation of Judah was going through a downward spiral into wickedness. Wickedness always brings slavery. It always brings bondage. It always brings oppression. And as they're going on this downward spiral, some of the great preachers, some of the righteous men, some of the righteous leaders, some of the godly people were starting to pass off the scene. They died, nobody cared, nobody seemed to notice. And then they even saw some that maybe died at a young age. But they didn't stop and realize that those people were better off than they were going to be. Because they didn't lay it to their heart, wait a minute, this guy's going to the grave in peace. He's not going to have to endure the suffering that we're about to enter as a nation. Do you understand what he's saying there now? He's saying nobody's considering that, wait a minute, by passing away, he's being taken away from the evil to come. You know what this reminds me of? Remember the son of Jehoshaphat? The wife of Jehoshaphat went to the prophet who was blind. You remember? I believe the prophet's name was Jehu, the son of, I forget what his name was, but anyway. His wife goes to the seer, and remember, she feigns herself to be another person. She pretends to be someone else. She walks in, and of course the prophet had just heard from God, so he said, "Hey, come on in, thou wife of Jeroboam. Why feignest thou thyself to be another?" She walks in, and she's basically inquiring, "Is my son going to live?" Because he was very ill. And the prophet basically told her, "No, your son's going to die. He only will go to the grave in peace because I found something good in him." And so basically God was doing this boy a favor by allowing him to just die at a young age because of the horrors of what would happen to the rest of his family when God brought his judgment and his wrath upon them. And so it's the same thing. Think about Jesus when he was on the way to the cross. Turn there, if you would, to the book of Luke. Luke chapter number 23. This is Jesus. He's marching up to the cross. He's carrying the cross. And actually, I believe at this point, it was compelled that Simon, the son of Cyrene, or the Cyrenian, would carry the cross for him. But watch this. He's marching up to the cross. And look at verse 27. "And there followed him a great company of women." Yeah, Simon had just picked up the cross and begun to carry it for him. But he's just beaten. He couldn't even carry the cross anymore. That's how bad he was off. And it says, "And there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Jesus, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children." This is Jesus right as he's about to die on the cross. These are some of his last words. He said, "For behold, the days are coming in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bear, and the paths which never gave son. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry?" And so he's basically talking about a day that would be coming one day when people would wish that they were dead. He's saying, "Weep not for me." And he's saying, "Weep for your children." They're the ones who are going to die and go to hell eternally. The only reason that Jesus had any rejoicing while he was in hell, he said, "My soul shall rest in hope, for thou wilt not leave my soul in hell. Neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption." At least Jesus could see, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. He endured hell. He endured the punishment of our sins because he had hope, the Bible says in Psalm 16. But for many people, there is no hope. Now look at Isaiah 57. Now that we understand that a little bit, he's saying, look, have you started to notice that a lot of the right preachers are dying off the scene? A lot of the merciful leaders and rulers are dying off the scene? Nobody's realizing that they're dying off the scene. They're going to the grave in peace. It says, he shall enter into peace. They're going to rest in peace. But wait a minute, those who've been left behind are going to see the real destruction. And no, I'm not alluding to the garbage put out by Tim LaHaye and Ron Comfort, or whatever those geeks' names are, Kirk Cameron. I'm not talking about that left behind nonsense. But look at verse 3. But draw near hither, ye sons of the sorceress. So here's the contrast. The good guys are passing off the scene. He says, draw near hither, ye sons of the sorceress, the seed of the adulterer and the whore. Now that's pretty strong language. He's basically looking at these people, and you got to realize, this was spoken. Holy men of God spake as they were moved by the Holy Ghost. It was spoken before it was written. The whole Bible is like that. Spoken first, written. And the holy men of God spake as they were moved by the Holy Ghost. Well spake the Holy Ghost by the mouth of Isaiah the prophet, saying. And so he stood up and basically preached and said, your mother is a whore. I mean, stop and think about that. That's what he's saying. He's saying, your mother is an adulterer. Your mother is a whore. Your mother is a sorceress. Now, this is some hard preaching. He said, against whom do you sport yourselves? Against whom do you make you a wide mouth and draw out the tongue? Are you not the children of transgression, a seed of falsehood? He said, why is he preaching so hard? Well, we're going to find out why he was so hard in his preaching and so basically condemning in what he was saying. But wait a minute. The adulterer, the whore, what is this talking about? Well, let me bring an application home. Look at James chapter 4, toward the very end of the New Testament. Obviously, there's literal adultery, there's literal whoredom, and there's nothing worse that I can think of than adultery, than whoredom. I mean, good night for a Christian to commit that. You know what I mean? Committing adultery, it's sacrilegious. You're violating the sacred trust between your husband and wife, and so it's a wicked sin. Let's face it. And whoredom, the difference between a whore and a prostitute is that, a prostitute or a harlot is usually an unmarried girl. A whore is a woman who's married and sells herself. Okay, that's the difference in the Bible between those two words, harlot and whore. Look at James chapter 4, and here's a more metaphorical term about this. Obviously, there's literal adultery, literal whoredom. But look at James chapter 4. It says, ye adulterers and adulteresses. This is verse 4. Know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. So basically, there's a spiritual adultery when you're basically a friend of the world. You side with the world. You pal around with the world. Instead of being yoked up with God, you're yoked up with unbelievers. You're yoked up with the world. And look what he says. Go down to verse 8 of Isaiah 57. Keep your finger on Isaiah 57. Obviously, that's where we are the whole night. But look at verse 8. Behind the doors also. And first he talks about them sacrificing to false gods. Then in verse 8 he says, behind the doors also in the post hast thou set up thy remembrance. For thou hast discovered thyself to another than me, and art gone up, and hast enlarged thy bed, and made thee a covenant with them. Thou lovedst their bed, where thou sawest it. He's basically comparing them worshiping other gods in the groves to committing adultery. It's as if they had, been a wife who went and slept with another man. And he's saying that's what it's like here. That's the gravity of when you're worshiping these false gods and wickedly committing adultery spiritually, so to speak. Because he said, basically, I'm married unto you, so as it were, and you're out worshiping another god. You're out serving another god. Look at verse, you say, why is he calling them these nasty names? Well, look at verse number 5. Inflaming yourselves with idols under every green tree, slaying the children in the valleys under the cliffs of the rocks. Now, what is this talking about? This is talking about literally killing your children. I mean, this is infanticide. We see it all throughout the Bible. There's nothing new under the sun, my friend. This is throughout the Old Testament, throughout 1st and 2nd Kings, throughout 1st and 2nd Chronicles. You will see people who made their children to pass through the fire unto the god Molech. Remember the king of Israel got scared, and all of a sudden, in a last-ditch effort, he was losing the battle. He sacrificed his own son in a human sacrifice. I mean, this kind of wicked garbage has been going on as long as time has been going on, where people kill their own children, and they kill them on the altar of a false god. All throughout the Bible. And that's what they were doing here. they'd slay their children. They'd go outside the city, they'd go out in some secret place, behind a closed door, out under some tree somewhere, and they would slay their own child. Think about how hardened you would have to be. And I never really understood how bad abortion was, or how bad it was to kill a child. You read the Bible and they would kill infants, or you think of King Herod slaying all the children that were 2 years old and under in Bethlehem and all the coasts thereof. You think of Pharaoh commanding that the baby boys be cast into the Nile River to be drowned. Not until I watched my son Solomon be born. And I stood there and watched that baby come out of his mother's womb. And I saw him lying there crying, and I picked him up and held him in my hand. Did I realize how sick, how depraved of a murderous creature you'd have to be to want to do any harm to a newborn baby? I mean, when you're holding a newborn baby in your arm, and when you watch that baby be born, to think that someone would murder that child, and to think that President Barack Obama himself is in our town tonight. He's in Tempe. Yeah. He's literally, 3 miles away from me as the crow flies, over at Arizona State University, Devil State University. The mascot of ASU is literally the devil. I mean, he's Satan. It's a devil with a pitchfork and horns, and it's the ASU devil. And the biggest devil in America is over there right now, Barack Obama. And he's over there speaking, and here's a man who has said yes to partial birth abortion, and he's also in the Congress. He was one of the only Democrats, when he was in the legislature, the state senate of Illinois, who would not vote for a measure that said that a doctor must give care to a baby who's born from a botched abortion. If the abortion doesn't go through and the baby's alive, they said you must give it care. He says, let it die. Let it die. Just leave it to die of natural causes. Don't tell me it doesn't happen either. I've heard testimony firsthand from people who've said it happens in the hospital, where it's aborted and it lives and they just let it die. And they can hear it crying, and they're so brazen hearted they don't even hear the cries. They just ignore it. I've known a young man when I was in Bible college who was the product of a botched abortion. His mother tried to abort him, and he survived. He's brain damaged and handicapped. But he was a soul winner. But he won people to Christ. He got people saved. He preached sermons in junior church to the children. And God used him greatly. Hey, thank God that he wasn't murdered by the devils in this country who call themselves a doctor. They put a little title on their name, like, oh, doctor, oh, MD, oh, PhD. Boy, they're going to burn in the lowest hell, my friend. And God is going to recompense everything that they've ever done upon their own head. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And so they can have their fancy title now. They'll have no title when they're burning in hell. And Barack Obama is wicked as the devil. Yeah. And any preacher, any pastor who has anything good to say about the monster, the psychopath that would say that a newborn baby should die, God help him. He's not even. He's worthless. He needs to be taken out of the pulpit. Yeah. Any preacher who won't preach against him is a phony sellout to the wicked people who are running our country. Amen. Why doesn't he look up to Jesus Christ and say, you're my authority, I'll say what you want me to say? Instead, he gets on his knees before the U.S. government and says, oh, Barack Obama, oh, God put you in this position. Oh, God appointed you. You know what? God appointed Barack Obama to destroy this country and persecute America for the wickedness of it. He's not our friend, he's our enemy. And I'll stand by that till I die. Amen. But it says here, inflaming yourselves. Now, what does that mean, inflaming yourself? Now, I don't know, but I will say this. I know that the word inflamed is used in the Bible in regards to being drunk. So I don't know if maybe that's a reference to this. I'm not really sure what that means. Inflaming yourself with idols. Maybe there's some alcohol involved. And you know what? Religions throughout history have involved alcohol and drugs. It's true. Look at the Native American religions of Arizona and New Mexico. Look at the Navajo Peyote religion. Drugs are a part of their worship service. And in Arizona, the hypocrisy that marijuana is illegal, all these other drugs are illegal, but peyote, which is way more harmful than marijuana, is allowed because of a religious purpose you know, they can smoke dope and whatever. And I'm not saying whether they should or shouldn't be allowed to. I'm saying it's hypocrisy to say, oh, this one's okay, this one's a religious. What kind of a religion is based on taking drugs? When the Bible said be sober.
That's right.
And you say, what religion is based on alcohol? You're crazy. Good night. Have you ever heard of Roman Catholicism? It has 1 billion members. And what do? They drink alcohol. You say, oh, they just drink a little sip. You know what? The priest is drinking more than anybody, because the priest, my wife said it was kind of like this, like he takes a sip and then he gives the cracker to somebody, he takes another sip, gives the cracker to somebody, you know. He drinks a lot. He's drunk by the end of it.
That's right.
In Germany. I was with the Baptist missionary in Germany. We went and visited somebody's house and they told us, they said, you know, I don't know what to put out for you. I don't know what to give you, because they said, when we used to be Catholic, whenever the priest would come over, we'd get out our best hard liquor and present it to him. And we would give him, you know, basically hard liquor to drink. I mean, it's what he would drink. You know, schnapps, right? You know, you know a little German. Anyway, they said, we don't know what to put in front of you. And then they said, I heard another couple say this. They said, boy, you're the first, you know, religious leader we've ever known who works. Like, we've been seeing these priests, you know, these Catholic and Lutheran priests, they just go visit people, they just eat cakes all day and drink liquor all day long. And you actually work, and you're building stuff, and you're out working with your hand. They say, it's amazing, you know, about this Baptist pastor I was with. And so look, alcohol, drugs, used for religion, it's out there. I mean, it's definitely a part of it. And you could go into some of the Asian religions. It's not just Native Americans, you know, the Asian religions, the Hmong people who live in Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam. You know, smoking drugs is a big part of their religious experience. You know what their religion is? Worshipping Satan. That's what it is.
That's right.
Worshiping Satan. Worshiping the devil. Okay, and it's nothing short of that. But look down, if you would, in your Bible, Isaiah 57 says, among the smooth stones of the streams, verse 6, is thy portion. They are thy lot. Even to them hast thou poured a drink offering. Thou hast offered a meat offering. Should I receive comfort in these? Upon a lofty and high mountain hast thou set thy bed. Even thither wentest thou up to offer. So again, he's using the bed as a metaphor of like worshiping other gods, like committing adultery against him. He says, behind the doors, also he talks about the bed, we already read that verse. Verse 9, and thou wentest to the king with ointment, and didst increase thy perfumes, and didst send thy messengers far off, and didst debase thyself even unto hell. Now, why is he preaching so hard? Why is he telling them that their mama's a whore? Why is he telling them you debased yourself down to hell? Why is he saying you're a murderer and an adulterer? Look, because they were wicked. I mean, anybody who would kill children, worship the devil, you know, inflame themselves with drink. I mean, these people are evil. This is bad. And so he couldn't really preach too hard against them. But he says here, thou didst debase thyself unto hell. What does that mean? Is he talking about literally going to hell? No, what he's talking about here, he's using a metaphor. Debase, okay? Think of the basement, right? Means you're lowering yourself, right? Have you ever heard the term like a lowlife? You know, going down. They're basically debased, like they're the scum of the earth, is what he's saying. And he's saying you've debased yourself, and he's using basically like a superlative, because if you keep going down, what's the lowest you can go? To hell. You know, I mean, because the world's round. So the furthest you can go down is hell. So he's not literally talking about it, he's saying like you debased yourself even down to hell. Like that's how low you've gotten. Because he's talking to people who are still alive. They're not in hell yet. I'm sure many of them are on their way to hell. And, well, you know, hopefully some of them got saved. I'm sure some people got saved once they heard Isaiah preaching and everything like that. But he's saying, you know, you debased yourself unto hell. And by the way, hell is a real place. And this verse emphasizes that because so many people don't realize that there's really a place called hell, and it's located in the center of the earth. It's in the lower parts of the earth, a place of fire and brimstone. And that's why even the science book will tell you there's fire in the middle of the earth, thousands and thousands of degrees hot. And so many people just think that hell is this spiritual place, when in reality the Bible makes clear that hell is a physical place. People, for example, in the book of Numbers, who blasphemed against God and they stood against Moses, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram and all their company, the earth opened its mouth and they dropped alive into the pit. He said, God's going to make a new thing, and these men will go down quick into the pit. Quick meaning alive. And so I'm sure they died on the way down. Right? basically it just opened up and they just went straight and just transitioned from body to soul right there, boom, on the way down into hell. So hell's a real place. It's not figurative. It's not about a thirst for God. It's not annihilation of the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not the hell where... And by the way, Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in hell. Mormons don't believe in hell. Seventh-day Adventists don't believe in hell. But hell is a real place with real fire and real torment. And it's down. Heaven is up, hell is down. That's what the Bible says throughout it. And yet people don't understand these are real places. The Bible says heaven's beyond the farthest star. No, it's out there. But it says, thou art weary, verse 10, in the greatness of thy way. Yet saidst thou not, there is no hope. Thou hast found the life of thine hand, therefore thou wast not grieved. And of whom hast thou been afraid or feared? That thou hast lied, and hast not remembered me, nor laid it to thy heart. Now, fear is often a motivation for lying. For example, remember Abraham says to Sarah, oh, tell him you're my sister. Why? Because he was afraid. Isaac says to Rebekah, let's just tell him you're my sister. And he says, why did you do that? Remember, not Phicol, but the boss, Abimelech, okay? Abimelech says to him, why have you lied? What sauce? And he says, no, I was afraid. I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place. And they're going to slay me and take my wife. Fear can lead you to lie. You need to just not let fear be a part of your life at all. The Christian's life should be a life without fear. Except one fear that's legitimate, the fear of God. I'm telling you something. Your fearlessness is a measure of your spirituality. God, you say, how do you say spirituality? How about this? God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. On and over, fear not, be not afraid. Be not afraid of their terror, he says in the book of 1 Peter. He says, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer in Revelation chapter 2. He said, be not afraid. Jesus, on and on, fear not. Fear. It was one of the things that just keeps coming out of Jesus' mouth throughout the Gospels is fear not, be not afraid. He said, be not afraid. He said, in nothing terrified by your adversaries. He said, not to fear, not to be terrified, not to be scared. And so when you get scared, that's what usually causes you to lie. You get caught in jam, you're afraid you're going to lose your job, you're afraid people are going to think poorly of you, you're afraid that you're going to get busted, so you lie. The fear was wrong, number one. That was where you lost the battle, was when you were afraid of man instead of only fearing, what is God going to think about me? Because you're not going to lie if you're just worried about what God's going to think, because God already knows the truth anyway. You might as well just tell the truth. And so, when it starts with fear, that's where you lost the battle right there. And then fear leads you into lying. Fear leads you into doing what's wrong. So he says in verse number 11, of whom hast thou been afraid or feared that thou hast lied? That's what led these people to lie. And hast not remembered me, nor laid it to thy heart. Have not I held my peace even of old, and thou fearest me not? See, they didn't fear him, they feared man. When David said, I will not fear what man shall do unto me. Hebrews chapter 5, so that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me. I'm sorry, Hebrews 13:5. And then he says, after this, he says, thou fearest me not. I will declare thy righteousness and thy works, for it shall not profit thee. See, our righteousness does not counterbalance our wickedness. This is what the world thinks. Does the good outweigh the bad? Okay, I'm going to heaven. Right? When you're out soul winning. You can't undo things that are bad with things good you've done. Imagine a life spent for good, and then you commit one murder. And then you go to the judge and say, okay, well, look at all the good things I did for 70 years. And one bad day, I got tired of my job at the post office, okay? So I committed this one sin, murder. Judge, can I just get like a slap on the wrist here? Good does not outweigh evil that you've done. Evil can only be atoned by justice, right? The Bible said, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, life for life, burning for burning. That's how it's atoned for. We've committed sin. We've trespassed. That trespass has to be punished. But it was punished upon Jesus on the cross. That's why we can be forgiven and saved, because Jesus paid for it. It's not good works that he did or that we do that somehow wipes out the bad. It's his blood shed, his death. That's what pays the price, the penalty of our sins, so we can be saved. All our righteousnesses are as filthy rags anyway, according to Isaiah 64:6. So he says in verse 13, when thou criest, let thy companies deliver thee. But the wind shall carry them all away. Vanity shall take them. But he that putteth his trust in me shall possess the land and shall inherit my holy mountain. So basically, when these horrible times come that are being predicted, remember Isaiah started out the chapter by saying, boy, these good preachers and great rulers and merciful people that are dying, they're going to rest in peace. They're better off. They've gone to a better place. You're going to endure suffering here. He says, when this comes, you're going to cry out to God. He's not going to hear you. He said, why don't you cry out to all your companies? Why don't you cry out to all your buddies, he's saying. Why don't you cry out to your false god? Why don't you cry out to these other nations that you're relying on for safety, these alliances that they made with Egypt and with all these people that they shouldn't have relied upon. They should have just relied on the Lord. They should have stood on their own 2 feet as Israel and not said, oh, we got to make an alliance with Pharaoh and with all these wicked nations. God told them not to make an alliance with any of those people in the law. He says, cry out to them, see if they'll help you. But he said, those who rely on me, those who put their trust in me shall possess the land and shall inherit my holy mountain. Now it's funny because, let me just get real controversial here, but, it's funny how the Jews today, they claim the right to just inherit the promised land. Right? But stop and think about this. Didn't they go to the promised land the first time? That was promised to Abraham, promised to Isaac, promised to Jacob, and they got right to the mouth of it, and God would not allow them into that land because of what? One word. What's the word? Because of their... So we see then that they could not enter in because of unbelief. Hebrews chapter 3, right? Their unbelief. Listen, does the Jewish state today believe on the Lord Jesus Christ? 99% does not. They reject Jesus Christ. I mean, there's a remnant of people that are saved, very small remnant of the Jews that are saved, and they're God's people if they're saved. If they're not saved, they're not God's people. They're not Christ. And they're not even Abraham's seed, according to Jesus in John chapter 8, Romans chapter 2, and many other places. Romans 9, 10, and 11. And yet they just claim to inherit this land like, oh, this is promised to our father Abraham. When Jesus said, if Abraham were your father, you'd do the works of Abraham. You do the deeds of your father. You're of your father, the devil. That's what Jesus told them. John the Baptist said, think not to say within yourselves, you have Abraham to our father. For I say to you that God is able these stones to raise up children of Abraham. And so those people think they're going to inherit the land when God said, he that putteth his trust in me shall possess the land. You know who's going to inherit that land over there, the promised land? Jerusalem? Israel? I am. You are. Born again, saved Christians in the millennial reign of Christ will rule and reign with Christ for 1,000 years, my friend. And let me tell you something. In Galatians it says the son of the bondwoman will not inherit with the son of the promise. Ishmael will not inherit with Isaac. Ishmael represents the physical seed of Abraham. Isaac represents the spiritual seed. And I'm going to tell you something. That land will be inherited by God's people. And the unbelieving Jews will go to hell. Unless they turn and believe on Christ, which they never will. Only a small remnant will, according to the Bible. A small remnant, just as there was a remnant in Jesus' day that believed on him. I mean, look at the disciples. They were Jews, and they believed on him. Many of the other Jews believed on him in Acts chapter 2, Acts chapter 3, and other places. So it's not that it's all the Jews, but most of them predominantly are unbelievers, unfortunately. And we don't hate them. I mean, we love them and want them to be saved, but they don't have a right to inherit that land. I don't care what anyway. That's not biblical. God doesn't care about that. God's looking after his people that are Christians. Not just because somebody happened to be born a certain race of Abraham. When God said, no, you're not Abraham's children unless you believe on Christ. If you be Christ, then are ye Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So he says in verse 14, it shall say, cast ye up. Cast ye up, prepare the way, take up the stumbling block out of the way of my people. For thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity, whose name is holy. That's a pretty strong statement, right? His name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, is what God is saying. With him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the contrite one. This is how we need to see God. Keep your finger here and look back to Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah chapter 6, you're in chapter 57. Look at chapter 6. It says in Isaiah 6:1, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. And then it goes on, verse 3, and one cried unto another, said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, the whole earth is full of his glory. In Revelation, the Bible talks about how these cherubims and seraphims are around the throne day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, which was and is to come. Holy, holy, holy. I mean, today they're saying, Holy, holy, holy. I mean, just again and again and again before God's throne. Hey, God is holy.
Amen.
God is separate. God is sanctified. I mean, God is clean. I mean, God has no sin in him, no unrighteousness in him, no lies, nothing that's wrong. Everything that is right and holy and sacred is God. He says, my name is holy. Another place he said, my name is jealous. Capital J. I mean, that's my name. Jealous. My name's holy. We need to see God as high and lifted up. We need to see God in a reverential light, to where we would have respect for God. Now, I don't believe in this stuff of, talking about God in a casual way. And saying, oh yeah, the man upstairs. You know what I mean? That's not right. And it's amazing how, like in the NIV, you'll notice they're taking away a lot of the titles. Like, whenever you see like Lord Jesus Christ in the King James, it'll just be like Jesus Christ. Or just Lord Jesus. Or it'll go from Lord Jesus to just Jesus. And they just take out. And it omits some, like, I think 80, 90 titles surrounding the name of Jesus Christ. Well, you say, well, it's so redundant. We know who he is. But wait a minute. God took the time how many times? Look at Paul saying, I'm an apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. He's giving him praise. He's giving him honor. He's giving him a title. He's giving him respect. Not JC. Not a t-shirt that says, this blood's for you. Or a really popular one I've seen lately, body piercing saved my life. I'm like, huh? And then on the back of the shirt, it's like a nail through a wrist. Or something. Now, and by the way, I'm sick of all these historical, scholastic, doctor idiots trying to come up with all this weird stuff. Oh, Jesus didn't die on a cross, he died on a stick. Like these people come up with. If you go back historically and look at the record, and they didn't really nail his hand, they actually just nailed his wrist. Now wait a minute, doesn't the Bible say that they nailed his hand? Doesn't the Bible say, like, put your finger in the print in the hand, Thomas? It doesn't say wrist. I don't care, some scientist on TV proved that, it was really his wrist. No, it was his hand, my friend.
Right.
They pierced his hands and his feet.
Yep.
It said, what are those wounds in thy hands in the book of Zechariah? The wounds that I received in the house of my friends. Okay? And so some t-shirt of a nail through a wrist, body piercing saved my life. No, body piercing is stupid. In fact, body piercing in many cultures is satanic. Okay? Now, I'm not against pierced ears. You say, well, why not? Because the Bible condones pierced ears. The Bible talks about pierced ears in a positive light. Read Ezekiel 16 or other place. That's the one that's popping in my mind. But look, people today want to mutilate their flesh in strange ways, in unnatural ways. I mean, they're mutilating, putting a rod through your tongue. I mean, and if you stop and see where these trends came from, they didn't come from God's people. Heathens in Africa have been doing this stuff for years. They've been putting discs in their mouth and holes in their tongue and all this, or the real big earlobes that hang down. And I wonder if people stop and think about it, when they put those real big earrings in their ear, that one day they're going to be like 50, 60, 70, and their ears probably aren't going to look that cool anymore. Grandma, why is your earlobe like 4 inches long? It's a long story. You had to be there back in 2005, it's a cool thing to do or whatever. It's like, good night. I've seen them like the size, the biggest ones I've seen in America has been like maybe the size of a 50-cent piece. But that's pretty big. We're talking about like this. There's nothing cool about that, So I don't really feel like we're in a shirt advertising body piercing and then attaching it to Jesus Christ. And the devil's all about destroying your flesh, tattooing it. The Bible says, thou shalt not print any marks upon thee. Thou shalt not make any cuttings in thy flesh. And yet people, cut themselves, tattoo themselves. They pierce themselves in strange and weird ways. It reminds me of the NIV, where in the King James Version, Isaac has sent his servant to go look for a wife, or Abraham sent the servant for a wife for Isaac. And he finds Rebecca, and in the King James Version, he put earrings on her. Right? In the NIV, he put a nose ring on her. You don't believe me, do you? Somebody find it for me. Here's the NIV. Where's the NIV? Here it is. See, some people can't take this kind of preaching. When you start getting on the body piercings, they're off the door. Find it for me. Who can find the fastest in Genesis? Check. All right. Should be like 23, 24, or chapter 24, right around there. Oh, you find it for me, Amanda. You already have it? Good, nice. Is this a big issue for you? So you really have this studied out. Where is it? It's not on here. Amanda, that was a decoy. Do you have it for the character? Find it for me. I'll talk about something else in the meantime. But look, the devil wants destruction of your flesh. Think about it. Look at the rock and roll stars. Look at Jimi Hendrix. How old was he when he died? 27. Janis Joplin, 27. Jim Morrison, 27. Kurt Cobain, 27. How old's Pastor Harrison? 27! I gotta survive just a couple more months and I'll be alright. But the thing is, why'd they die at that age? They killed themselves. Jimi Hendrix, you know how Jimi Hendrix died? He was high on drugs. This is the music that you love to listen to, right? It's a satanic, self-destruct. You know what Jimi Hendrix said? He said, music is my religion, and that religion is voodoo. That's what he said. Did you hear that? Music is my religion. You can look these up on the internet. These are cool quotes from, there are websites, you have these on the website like as a cool quote from Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. Music is my religion, and that religion is voodoo. That's what he said. One of his albums is called Voodoo Child. Okay? I've seen a clip of Jimi Hendrix on his knees before his guitar, lighting his guitar on fire, doing all kinds of weird satanic signs and stuff. And he said, when I burned my guitar, it was like I was making a sacrifice. It was like a voodoo sacrifice. He said, because you sacrifice what's dear to you, and that's my guitar. So that's what he's lighting his. So when you're at this rock concert, you're at some voodoo worship service, and the pastor is Jimi Hendrix. Kurt Cobain, suicide. Jim Morrison, what? Drug overdose, which is basically suicide. You know how Jimi Hendrix died, though? He was high on drugs. He'd taken like 12 pills. He'd taken some other drugs and drank a bottle of wine. He choked to death on his own vomit from the wine that he was drinking. That's how your hero, Jimi Hendrix, died. And yet people will listen to his music. You look at all these people that are destructive. Look at the people in Hollywood. They have eating disorder after eating disorder. They're in rehab. They shave their head like Britney Spears. Why? They're just destroying themselves everywhere possible. With drugs, with alcohol, with cutting, with mutilation. Satanism teaches the destruction of your own flesh. Who's got the NIV? This is just an anecdote. 24:22. Listen to this. When the camels had finished drinking, this is Genesis 24:22 in the NIV. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took out a gold nose ring, weighing a beka. Boy, isn't the NIV easy to understand? I mean, everybody knows what a beka is, right? B-E-K-A. He took out a gold nose ring weighing a beka, and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 shekels. Then he asked, whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? And then later on in the chapter, that's the verse that he showed me, but it says that you put the nose ring on her face. And that's the part that I think is funny, because I can see him like, okay, hold still, let me install this nose ring for you. And I guess she already had her nose pierced, so she's like, oh, just a minute, let me take out my existing nose ring so that you can put in this nose ring, okay? And I'm sorry, but I don't want either of my 2 daughters to have a nose ring. Call me a fanatic. Call me one of those Christian right-wing extremists. But I hope my daughter doesn't grow up and get her tongue pierced or a nose ring. Or read the NIV. It's pretty much the same thing. But anyway, I got to get back to the chapter. I'm off on a rabbit trail. But Isaiah 57, it says in verse number, what verse were we in? Oh yeah, God's high and lifted up. Okay? For thus saith the high and lofty. That's where we got off on this. These t-shirts basically making a joke out of spiritual things. Spiritual things are not a joke.
Right.
You know what the pastor has told so many times? Like, be great, be sober, be serious. Now there's a time for humor, and there's humor in the Bible. But wait a minute. Is our life a joke? Is God a joke? Is the Holy Spirit a joke? No. And we ought to be serious when it comes to God's name, God's Word, and we ought not make a joke out of it. Hey, this blood's for you. Make it a slogan. Starbucks, instead of the girl, it's Jesus with long hair. Yeah, it's blasphemy, my friend. And we need to see God as high and lifted up. Respect for God is what we're talking about. Not throwing around His name. God said, I'll not hold him guiltless to take my name in vain. Using God's name, oh my God, Jesus Christ, as an expletive. It's wicked. It's one of the Ten Commandments. And so we ought to see God as high and lifted up. Have respect for Him. Have reverence for Him. Speak to Him with reverence. Call Him. I mean, look what Jesus said in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be Thy name. Right? Hallowed be Thy name. He's addressing Him with respect. He's teaching us to address Him with respect. And when we pray to God, we should praise God and lavish Him with respect and compliments and praise because He's God. He's high and lifted up. Now this goes hand in hand with the latter part of verse 15. It says, I dwell in the high and holy place, with Him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the contrite one. So, if you want to be close to God, you have to humble yourself. See, and humbling yourself is basically just seeing Him as high and lifted up. That's what humbling. See, a lot of people call it humility to basically degrade themselves and say, "Oh, I'm horrible. I'm worthless." I heard a preacher say one time that whenever he prays, he gets on his knees by the window and he puts his finger in the door frame and gets dirt on his finger. He says, "God, this is what I am." Now look, I'm not dirt. Okay? I'm not. Oh, he's like, "Oh, I'm scum. I'm just dirt." I'm a child of God. I'm going to live forever. God has made us priests and kings unto God and His Father. We're priests. We're kings. We are somebody. But wait a minute. It's only because of God that we are anybody. See, that's what we ought to realize. Giving God the praise and the glory is humility. Not saying, "Oh, I'm such a terrible Christian. I'm not even worthy of preaching to you right now. I don't even know why I'm a pastor in this church. Somebody else might take over the sermon." Oh man, Pastor Anderson's so humble. Oh man, that was great, that he would really just drag himself down like that. No, really, the difference between pride and humility is giving God the glory or taking the glory for yourself. We give God the glory by preaching that salvation is by faith alone. Because we're basically saying, "Hey, Lord, nothing good have I whereby Thy grace to claim. I'll wash my garments white in the blood of Calvary slain. Jesus paid it all to Him I owe. Sin that left a crimson stain, He washed it white as snow." That's humility. Saying, if it were based on me, I'd go to hell. But thanks be to God, I've been translated into the kingdom of His dear Son through faith in the blood of Christ. That doesn't mean that I'm a nobody or that I'm worthless. I'm expendable. God can replace me at any time. God can't replace me. God can't replace you. If you quit the church and go live a life of sin, this church will be never the same. There will always be a missing spot. There will always be doors that should have been knocked by you, people that you should have won to Christ. We matter. I matter. You matter. But we got to not lift ourselves up and say, "Hey, it's me. It's about me." No, God is using me. I'm somebody great because my Father is God, not because I've done some exploit. I mean, look, we all have talents and abilities that are given to us by God. And that's what we have to acknowledge. They came from God. We use them for God. And so that's what humility is. You must be humble in order to be close to God. You must see Him as high and lifted up. You must not be disrespectful to Him. You must not take the glory and the praise for yourself. Now look, if I were to say to myself, Faithful Word Baptist Church exists because of Steven Anderson, it would be a lie. And it would also be pride, and it would also be wrong. Because think about this now. When I started Faithful Word Baptist Church, on the fourth Sunday, we had a pretty good crowd of people. I moved here. I didn't know anybody. Just started knocking doors. 3 days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I got there Thursday, started knocking doors. Got into my house Thursday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, first service on Sunday. We had 4 adult men visit in the morning service, and they were from a few different households. That Sunday night, we had a few other men visit on Sunday night. The next Sunday, Amanda came. A few other people came. But stop and think about this. How many times have you gone out soul winning for weeks and weeks and weeks and nobody came to church? Anybody been there? Oh yeah, everybody. I've gone out soul winning other times for months and not had a single visitor in church. And yet, like the 4th week, we had a big crowd, like 20-some people. For just starting out, it was great. We had 20-some people show up just 3-4 weeks into it, the 4th Sunday, because it was God that was doing it. How many times we knocked the doors of a whole neighborhood and nobody from that neighborhood started to come to our church? And yet in my subdivision, where God led me to live, and where I knocked all those doors first, so many people started coming to our church out of that subdivision. Amanda, the Skaggs family, and a bunch of other people came that no longer come to our church. But right away we had a church, we had a group coming, because God was the one doing it. It wasn't me doing it. Because other times I've knocked and worked harder than I did in those first few weeks. But in those first few weeks, God was starting this church. God built the church. And so Steven Anderson doesn't build the church. If I thought I built the church, I would tone down my preaching. Because it makes sense, right? If you preach too hard, people aren't going to come back. Tone it down a little. You still preach the truth. Just water it down a little. Don't hit on certain things. But see, the reason, let me prove to you my humility. Let me tell you how humble I am. I'll tell you how humble I am. I preach super hard, and I don't even think for a second that it's me that's building this church. Because look, only God could build Faithful Word Baptist Church. Because humanly speaking, it doesn't make any sense. It's not what people want to hear. It's not what's popular. But yet the church thrives. Why? Because it's God that's doing it. And right now, I'll give God all the glory. It's not my soul winning. It's not some special thing that I'm doing. It's God. God wants this church to exist. Okay? He's using us to do the work. But you know what? It only exists through God. Because other times we could go out and knock those doors and beat our head against the wall and no one would come. We've all been there. It's God. That's humility. We've got to realize that it's God that worketh in us, both to will and to do of His good pleasure. Look at verse 16. For I will not contend forever, neither will I be always wroth. For the spirit should fail before me in the souls which I have made. For the iniquity of his covetousness was I wroth. What's covetousness? Desiring that which belongs to someone else. He says, his covetousness was I wroth, and smote him. I hid me and was wroth, and he went on frowardly in the way of his heart. I have seen his ways and will heal him. I will lead him also and restore comforts unto him and to his mourners. I create the fruit of the lips. Now watch this. Peace. Peace to him that is far off, and to him that is near, saith the Lord, and I will heal him. See, God is a God of peace. He's called the Prince of Peace. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. And so he's basically saying, peace is what I want. Not just for him that's near, but for him that's far. For every nation in this world. But the wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. So where do wars come from? Sin. From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence even from your lusts that war in your members? He's saying that war, this is in James chapter 4, verse 1. Where does war come from? It starts in your body, he said. From whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence even from your lusts that war in your members? He's saying warfare starts inside your body, a war in your body between good and evil. Sin is the cause for war in this world. There will always be war in this world until Jesus Christ returns. When they finally say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them. That's where Jesus Christ comes back in the rapture. But there is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. Peace will only be existing on this earth when there is no more wicked governments, when it's just Jesus Christ ruling and reigning. Until then, there will be war because of the sinful heart of man. And the more wicked, the more war there is. The more wicked man is, the more war there is. See, we as Christians should be for peace. Peace at any cost? No. Not peace at any cost. There are some things that we need to be willing to fight for, that we ought to be willing to fight for, to protect ourselves, to protect our freedoms. But we shouldn't just be a warmonger. You understand? We shouldn't just want war for the sake of war, because there's nothing good about war. War is something that comes because of the wickedness of man. And so we should try to avoid war. David said this. He said, I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. So he wasn't just trying to go out and just create war. Okay, war is something that sometimes is a necessary evil, but it's not something that we should embrace or desire or want or think it's cool. You know, there's really nothing cool about people dying. You know, think about it. People being blown apart or people losing, limbs. There's nothing cool about that. And, it's glorified in the video games. It's glorified in Hollywood. And I'm all for, fighting sports. I'm all for boxing, kickboxing. I'm all for fencing and learning how to fight, learning how to protect yourself. And, David talked a lot. He said that God had taught his fingers. He taught his hands to war and his fingers to fight. And he talked about how they taught the use of the bow, and God wanted them to learn how to use weapons and to fight. I'm not against any of that. I'm talking about glorifying violence. I'm not talking about, there's nothing violent about a boxing match. No one's being violated. You understand what I'm saying? It's two people that are training, that are, they're basically exercising, sport, training. It's very healthy. It's good. I think it's beneficial. But wait a minute. Thinking it's cool to watch on screen somebody being blown apart in a gory way, I don't think there's anything cool about that. Thinking it's cool to watch innocent people die on a video game, and today the video games are so sick. It's not Pac-Man anymore, folks. It's games where you're the bad guy, and you're going out and killing innocent people. You think that's cool? Or they'll think it's cool, some video will circulate on YouTube or among people on the internet, of some Iraqi dying in a gory way, saying, yeah, get them. Those people are still human beings. We shouldn't delight in someone dying in a gruesome way. Do you understand what I'm saying? You need to be able to see that, because we live in a society where we're so desensitized to human suffering. We don't realize, hey, that's a human being. And, if you have to kill somebody, you have to kill somebody. But to sit there and think it's fun and cool, and then to indoctrinate children that it's cool to watch people suffer. Oh, let's go buy a ticket to this movie because we can watch someone die in a gruesome way. Oh, that's my favorite part of the movie. Come on. You know it's not right. There's something sick in your heart when you think it's fun to watch people suffer. That's sick. And we need to be aware of that, because God is a God of peace. Now look, am I willing to fight? Absolutely. Do I live a life of peace? Not always. There are times when there's strife in my life. But wait a minute. I want peace. I desire peace. David desired peace. God desires peace. And warfare and killing is the result of sin and wickedness. Should we fight? If we have to, yes. Should America fight? If America has to, yes. Is it wrong to go in the military? No. Is it wrong to be a soldier? Is it wrong to kill in war? Absolutely not. But wait a minute. Is that the best case scenario, though? No. We should desire peace. We shouldn't compromise what we believe for peace. I'm not going to compromise what I believe to have peace with another preacher. I'd rather have strife with another preacher and peace with God by not compromising. And so you have to understand that balance there between war and peace. Let's bow our heads and have a word of prayer.